everybody. Welcome to this edition of Hardcore Wrestling Radio. I am actually acting as host today. This is Joseph Skoldren Knight, the entrepreneur, the insane, the Grim Reaper of gaming. And I've got a couple of fellows with me and a lovely lass who are just as insane as I am. But let's introduce him. First of all, he is the boss of this asylum. He is Rick Head. Rick, hope you're feeling a lot better, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, wasn't feeling too great earlier today, but I'm like, I had to jump on and get on the horse, and I'm glad Joe has the reins. So let's get this party started.
All right, and he is the guitar-picking Southern brother. He is the incomparable one, Lance Moss. Lance, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Got me some coffee over here on my entertainment center. So let's have some fun.
All right. With wrestling today, we need all the fun we can get. And she is the vicious vixen from Kentucky's Own Wrestling, the one that has a nice leash on Jon Moxley. Yeah, think about that, folks. She is the vicious vixen and always the lovable Zoe Nightshade. Zoe.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Hey, you took Alexa Bliss to your closet, so to you too.
Hey, yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
We're both gonna have
It's only because she likes it like that.
Yeah. Hey.
I heard inside news. Well, okay, Dave Meltzer said that she likes it rough and she likes it, but
So she needs a bigger guy.
Yep.
Oh.
Wow, what a way to start off wrestling, huh? All right, everybody, let's go quickly into this. This is kind of an observation. It's also a rant. Kenny Omega, who we all know is the current AEW World Heavyweight Champion, he is actually appeared with Don Callis over on Impact Wrestling. Now, there's a storyline that basically Callis and him have worked together for many years. He kind of mentored Kenny. He's been with Kenny in different companies. And now he is, you could say, his advisor / manager on the two brands. So we got to see this Tuesday. Here's something funny, too. We got to see this Tuesday Kenny Omega on Impact. He did an interview with Don Callis. Now, that was recorded because at the same time, he pulled a Rick Rude, Lance. Kenny Omega went to Mexico to fight for the defend his AAA championship, which I forget exactly what title he has from AAA, but he has a AAA title, and he was defending it down there. From what I'm seeing, Lance, it looks like he's collecting belts to kind of make the old NWA when Ric Flair used to travel to the territories and defend his belts in World Class, the AWA, Mid-South, Memphis. What do you think about him being not only on Impact, but also defending his championship, his other championships?
Well, first, I didn't know he had an NWA title. Or the AAA title. But I guarantee when he heard he was going to AAA, he's like, I don't need insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to look him up right now and get some more. Look up his different championships. Now, here's the funny thing, too. Kenny has worked in many companies. He was in TNA, the original. He wasn't able to win the X Division title back from P.D. Williams. He was in the NWA, not the old one, but the new one. The MWF. He's been in my friend's promotion, Jersey All Pro Wrestling. And he's worked with many different people. He actually captured the Jersey All Pro, the JEPW Heavyweight Championship by defeating another up and coming Low Ki. So that is something else. Kenny also won the JEPW Light Heavyweight Championship. So there's a lot. I mean, Kenny's his pretty much his repertoire is completely full. So, Rick, I'm going to throw this question. Now I'm going to go to Zoe. But what do you think about Kenny? He's the AEW champion. He's now defending a title that he had. I'm still looking it up for AAA. He is. Let me see here. He is the AAA Mega Champion. He's currently right now.
Yeah, I just read that myself. And like you said before, it sounds like he's going to different promotions, which, again, Tony Khan is smart because he's supporting this. And he's saying, you know what? We can't be exclusive to one company. Excuse me. We have to keep on moving around. We have to let them know that our wrestlers are the best wrestlers. WWE says they're the best wrestlers around the world, but, I mean, let's be honest. Look at John Cena. He's a perfect example. Who is he beating outside the AAA? I mean, outside the WWE? Nobody.
Well, John Cena is a homebred person.
He's a company boy.
Yeah, he's a company boy and always will be. Zoe, you are in the business currently. I used to be in the business. We've seen promotions work with each other. I grew up in an era where I got to see the AWA, the NWA, and Mid-South and World Class all work together to do Supercards, but then there was always politics. What do you think about this is that Tony Khan is doing now? WWE does have something similar, but they have Evolve and a couple other indie companies just showing their stuff. They do show their stuff.
They buy those companies.
Right. But, Zoe, what do you think about this situation when Kenny's going around defending his title?
Well, I mean, with Kenny, he's got all those multiple titles and everything. And if you're holding a pretty big title at a promotion, they expect you to be there. I don't know why everybody's so hyped up on the son of a bitch. He's dumbass. He's ugly as shit. Needs a haircut. And he's boring as fuck. Yeah, he can throw a couple of moves around. That's awesome and everything. I don't get the hype.
You know what it is? I wanted to jump in. I know Lance is next, but you know what? He has that old 80s wrestling look. I don't know, Joe, if you would agree or disagree on that one.
You know what? By looking at Kenny, I will say he has the look of WCW Cruiserweight. When it was Jericho, when it was Pillman. He looks more like Pillman than Pillman's actual son. And that's Brian Pillman, Flying Brian. But the thing is, here's a guy, Tony Collins is in conversations with Impact Wrestling. Now, there is rumors that he might buy Impact. Right now, Impact, Rick, I'm going to let you take over right now. You watched Impact Wrestling. Tee to the rest of us. And, tell me, what did you think of the product?
Painful. Very, very painful. I watched it, honestly, just to see Kenny Omega, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch it. I want to see, maybe these guys, maybe they up their game. And, some of the matches were okay, not great, but they spent so much time advertising, more than WWE does. And they were advertising their I guess their own streaming or Impact Plus product. But the only thing they were really advertising was old Impact or of the TNA years, which I found kind of funny. It's like you don't trust your guys of today. So that's not saying much. Lance, I'm going to throw that over to you.
Well, I'll put it like this. You and Zoe watched Kenny's Kenny's appearance on Impact, honestly, Tuesday night while we were doing the show. On my show, Lance Moss TV and Friends, Ain't no way in hell I was turning that on. Especially the way y'all were describing it. Ain't no way in hell.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
Oh no, I thought you said take over for a sec, but nope. Go on, over to you.
Okay. No, well, you know what? It is weird. It is something that we haven't seen since the '80s. You know what? I think, Rick. You know, we're looking at Tony Khan kind of buying these struggling companies. You know, their Impact has been struggling since Dixie Carter era, and you know, the other company, like the NWA, is run by Lance. Remind me, who does he is run by? Billy Corgan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's run by Billy Corgan, and they're not doing well because of the pandemic. You know, then you have Ring of Honor, who I don't know who runs that. Uh, but, you know, these companies.
Bully Ray actually has the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there you go. But the situation is, right now, none of these companies are making any money. You know, the only company that's actually striving is All Elite because they are on a prime time channel. They're back on TNT where WCW used to be. There's the familiarity. When I saw Sting come out, I kind of had goosebumps because it's kind of, even though, you know, he's a lot older, he's in his early 60s, and he can't probably run around like he used to do. But just to see him on TNT again, that was a big plus for me. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Khan actually decided, well, Impact is in the shitter. Let me buy this. Well, the NWA is in the shitter. I don't know if he was interested in that or Ring of Honor. Zoe, again, I'm going to go to you because you're in the business. What would happen if somebody came to your promoter and said, we're going to buy your company and you're basically going to be a side brand? I think that's pretty much what Tony Khan's looking at.
Well, I mean, my promoter is really, really proud of everything, so I'm pretty sure he would probably put up a fight against being bought out, especially if they say we're going to make you guys a sideshow.
All right, fair enough, because that's kind of how I felt too when I ran a promotion. All right, so again, we'll have to see what happens with Impact. Again, the storyline is interesting. We're seeing the AEW champion appearing in other locations, so that'll be something else. And again, we've lost so many now. We're on a new subject. We lost so many great people recently. Wrestlers and non-wrestlers. I think the last one that I just popped up before the one I mentioned right now is Charlie Pride. And Lance, I think you should know about Charlie Pride, though. I hope.
Well, actually, first African American, well, first black country western singer to actually get another number one in country music.
Thank you. Used to love it. I used to listen to his music, but in the wrestling world, we lost. I wouldn't say he was an active wrestler. He appeared in a little bit of matches, but he was his size and everything. I think he could have made it. We're talking about Tommy Tiny Lister, who passed away at the age of 62. Now, before we go into anything, let me run down a quick little passage. Movie star Tommy Lister passed away this week at the age of 62. Lister starred in movies such as Friday, Fifth Element, The Dark Knight, and also the Hulk Hogan movie, No Holds Barred, back in 1989. You know, I think if you into WWE movies, this was actually their first movie that they ever did. This is WWE's first movie they created. Now we're not counting. This was in the 80s, so they didn't have any wrestling type movies. They had They Live, they had Predator, but it wasn't wrestling. It was wrestlers in that movie.
They actually, Joe, it wasn't popular, unfortunately, because wrestling wasn't popular, but they had Body Slam, starring Roddy Piper and a few others.
Yes. I think it was Roddy Piper and Jesse the Body Ventura. I'm not too sure. And,
and yeah, there's another one again, but go ahead. Sorry.
Before that one, there was the early '80s one, which is I think it was in the '70s. It was The Wrestler, not to be confused with the Mickey Rourke one. This one was an AWA product. It was Vern Gagne making his movie, and this was The Wrestler. And it's actually different compared to what you see in the Mickey Rourke version. If you ever get a chance, look it up. It's a very interesting movie. But anyway, in No Holds Barred, Hulk Hogan portrayed the character Rip Thompson, a top star in professional wrestling. And why do I sound like Paul Heyman? I don't know. That was challenged by Zeus, a big monster type guy, in a No Holds Barred style wrestling promotion, in their version of an ECW. Now, the movie didn't do well, but everybody liked Tiny Lister. So he did transcend. McMahon saw a way to kind of push the movie down everybody's throats. So they did SummerSlam. And they brought Zeus in to team up with the Macho King at the time, Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah. And he would go up against Hulk Hogan and returning Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now, guys, if you remember, Beefcake got hurt in a surfing accident, a boating accident.
It was a boating accident.
Thank you, Rick. And he was out the SummerSlam '88, which he would have won the Intercontinental title from the Honky Tonk Man, but it went downhill, went to the Warrior. So thank you, Lance. So he's back here, teaming up with the Hulkster. This will kind of start off like a little bit of a team up throughout the years, because before Hogan's entrance into the WWF at the time, him and Hogan used to team up as the Boulder Brothers in different locations in Georgia and so forth. So there was kind of like them returning back, and then they were the Mega Maniacs, I think they were, and we all know where else it happened there. I'm going to toss it to you, Rick. Tiny, while he wasn't a formidable wrestler, he was just a powerhouse, but he didn't need to do much because he had someone like Randy Savage with him. Any memorable moments of not only the feud at SummerSlam, but at the movie?
Well, I loved the movie. I mean, I was a young teenager who was a huge fan. I remember that I walked by and I saw the poster in the movie theater. I'm like, oh my God, that's Hulk Hogan. And Tiny Lister, at least I really didn't know who he was, but I'm like, all right, I'll check this movie out. And honestly, I if you ask me, stuff about the movie, I don't remember. I just remember Hulk Hogan would always, scream, rip him, and whatever. I think Hulk Hogan lost the first match, and then he came back and he just decided to, play into Zeus's game and said, all right, let's just do, no hold bars. Let's just fight. And that's what he thought. He was supposed to be a wrestler, and he thought he could out-wrestle him. I do remember the Zeus storyline when he came into wrestling, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is just, a really cheap advertisement. But you know what? Honestly, I think if he had the proper training, and if that was like the business that he wanted to get into, I think that Lister could have been a great wrestler. But that didn't come to pass. He just became an actor, and a very good one.
Absolutely. Lance, they actually did a pay-per-view. It was a mini pay-per-view for this. WWF at the time, because again, we're going to say WWF. There's a lot of F's in this thing. They did a no holds barred screening of the movie, and then afterwards was a cage match. I'm going to toss you the same question. Did you happen to see the movie or the match itself?
Honestly, I didn't. How I first found out about No Holds Barred was as a kid. I'd always go to a local videotape store. Yes, some kids there would usually used to be these things called video stores, and even not even DVD, but video stores on Fridays, and I'd always get go into the back history of wrestling section, and I'd always get an action movie. And I walked in there, and I'm like, and I just see Hulk Hogan. I was like, what the hell is Hulk Hogan doing in here? This ain't Thunder in Paradise. So I rent that, and well, lo and behold, I find out that there has then about a couple of weeks later, I see the No Holds Barred pay-per-view. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, it kind of had that Rocky type movie. It was the hero got beat up. It was his little brother who got beaten up by Lister, and then he kind of promised he'll get him back. Zoe, I know this is going to be way before your time, but have you ever seen the movie or remember the matches?
I do not. Neither one. I don't remember the matches or the movie. The only thing that I remember the man from was just being Debo and Friday.
You got knocked the fuck out.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And the only reason why my brother was huge, liked all the hip hop movies, and I'm watching it, and they had some funny jokes, and then I saw Tiny Lister come around the kid's bike, and I'm like, oh my god, and that was it. I'm like, I'm gonna watch the rest of this thing.
Well, you know what? And again, it's sad to see him go. Like you said, Rick, if he would have had the training, he would have. But I think his acting career was taking off more, and he probably saw, why am I going to kill myself like these guys are, when I could just make a lot of money just not getting hurt. So, he'll be missed. There's a lot of people who passed away this year that will be also missed, but again, that's another person from my past as well. So we will go from there. Let's go a little bit into another subject here. The Rock. If you smell, The Rock won't wrestle until 2022. There has been rumors circulating that Dwayne The Rock Johnson would have a feud with his nephew Roman Reigns at New Year's SummerSlam. However, that's not the case. Reports are saying that The Rock has no plans to wrestle until 2022. This is mostly due to the WWE having empty arenas due to the COVID. I did read that they were trying to push for Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania, and I agree with The Rock. Why perform for a bunch of monitors? It doesn't capture the moment. It doesn't capture the feeling of a live crowd now. There is the vaccine that's is going out now for people to take. How would that impact everybody? No pun intended to TNA. How's that going to change society where we are? We don't know. I say it's still going to take 6 months before we actually see some changes. And hopefully it's for the better. But Rick, The Rock picking this type of year, I think the reason he picked 2022 is, one, not only to see if the COVID is lifted, two, in case his movies slow down. And I think this will be an opportunity for him to come on, because who knows? We've seen actors and celebrities become president. Who knows, in 2 more years after, The Rock uses this advantage and runs for president.
Well, you know what? Let me just say this. In his early years, The Rock was a wrestler. And, he loved the business. Now, okay, fine. We could say that, the coronavirus has empty arenas. But honestly, it just shows you that he is no longer considered a wrestler. Some people are like, oh, he's still a wrestler. He's still a Rock. No, I call him Dwayne. Because he's now an actor who will only wrestle on certain occasions for certain reasons. If you notice, most of the time he wrestles is when one of his movies are coming out, where he has to advertise the shit out of a movie.
Absolutely.
And now, again, it's going to be all about the paycheck. we say in any business, it's about the money. It's about the money. I think now in his case, it's about a really big paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rock is not an idiot. He looks at wrestling, I think, the same way, you know, like other actors who transition away from it. Hulk Hogan was like that. Um, you look at Stone Cold, who done a couple of movie stuff as well. Um, Honestly, Zoe, The Rock making this actually time and date. I think he's just feeling out what's going to happen in a couple of years to see if he's going to be still relevant.
Well, I mean, I can understand why pushing it off because, like you said, don't want to listen in front of TV monitors and kid monitors. I mean, that's not the rock kind of deal. He wants that, all those people in the crowd. He wants to feel that energy. He wants to get in there. Um, and then just with the COVID thing, he's trying to avoid it because he's had COVID. His whole family's had COVID. I guarantee you, he doesn't want it back. I don't blame him on that. Plus, you may be thinking, and then you also have to consider, he's going to have to, he's in great shape. I mean, he's The Rock. He is in shape. But he's also going to have to start getting back into the ring to make sure that he is ring ready as well. And as far as how long that'll take, that's up to him. He knows his body.
You know what, Lance? I mean, it's the same thing. Zoe made some points there. It's all about the money as well. And he's also has kids too, so he's not looking to get any of them sick. But when you look at something like him picking a date and a time, I think he's kind of just feeling it out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think with the whole setting it that far in the future at the earliest is not necessarily a bad idea because let's face it, he ain't just sitting at home playing video games. This man is probably going on location where he can filming movies, planning what the hell they're going to do with the XFL and other things because he's not just John Q wrestler meathead. He is let's face it, probably one of the biggest action stars in movies right now.
Which is very true. Go ahead.
So got to give him. It'd probably take him that long to basically free up that time.
And if I can just add one thing, Hulk Hogan, he did do a lot of other movies, TV shows, but he always seemed to go back to his roots in wrestling. Now, you could say it was because, maybe his movies sucked, which, to a point, his movies weren't that great. But he still made a lot of money. But unfortunately, his divorce from his wife, he was paying alimony, so he had to go back to something where he got paid. So I guess if you look at that aspect, there are some wrestlers that went to acting, but for some reason or another, they came back to their roots.
Well, and then The Rock is also getting ready to start his own TV show as well about his life. So he will be writing and I'm sure producing that as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately, one last thing, I think The Rock purchasing XFL was kind of a bad timing and just a bad idea.
You know what? I'm going to throw this in there. I don't think so personally, because again, he's another person that's looking at it like it's a side thing. There's been controversies in sports with the kneeling, with Black Lives Matter coming on the field, Blue Lives Matter. We've seen reports of people just attacking one another stupidly over that type of thing. And I think, what, if it really starts getting worse the following year or leading up, I could see him using that as an alternative. Vince was another person that looked at that as well. He I think that was why he made the XFL again, because he probably said, well, look at all the controversy going on in football, might as well, do something with it. I think that's what we're seeing when we're calling the XFL. And who knows? Probably Vince told him, "Hey, buy it, hold it up, hold it for me, and I'll buy it back from you." Because him and Vince go back a long way. So I can actually see this situation becoming like, "Hold this for me. Nobody can say I own it. Make some big plans, and then in the last moment sell it back to me." I don't know. Maybe that's my thing, Rick.
I disagree on that one real quick. Vince doesn't sell something and then say, "Oh, I'm going to buy it back." The Rock, he's a businessman, a smart one at that. I still think XFL is going to be a dead horse, but if he can make something out of it, Vince is not going to, Vince is going to say, Rock's just not going to hand it back to him, so I don't think The Rock would do that, not at all.
All right, last word, Lance.
Dwayne.
Okay, we're moving along. We have like two situations going on. We have Jim Ross, who recently made a comment on his Twitter and on Twitter as well as his podcast, Grilling with JR, how he looks at the current roster of wrestlers, not only in AEW but in WWE, and how they are more what I call spot monkeys. And he got into heat with a couple of the talent. A couple of the talent kind of understood where he's coming from, but they kind of were upset with him for burying the talent. And his reply was, "Hey, I think the comment was, hey, you know what? All these guys, they do the same moves. They all go outside the ring, friends and bad guys, and they huddle together and they catch some flying idiot." That was his actual quote that he said. And I know a couple of the workers were offended. A couple others were like, geez, man, you could have not said in that way. And to a point, I have to agree. The current talent today, I'm not putting this all on AEW because they're young guys, but in WWE, they all do the same thing. They all huddle together. They look like they're gonna fight it out, and we've seen it so much of pay-per-views. And then next thing you know, some guys running, bouncing off the ropes, leaping out, and they all catch them, and they all make this big splash outside, and it just looks so cheap. Like once in a while, yes, but what Jim was saying, it's every time, and then they oversell stuff. Like a DDT, which used to finish a match, now everybody kicks out. Pile drivers, everybody kicks out. And I think I even ranted about that as well. Like, nobody can sell anything. And I think that's what Jim Ross was saying. Zoe, again, being in the business, you've worked a lot with Suede and a couple other folks down in Kentucky Zone Wrestling and other organizations. Do you agree with Jim Ross when he says about stuff like that, about the spot monkeys?
I do, and I don't, I guess. I know from my personal experience at KZW, we really didn't have a lot of spot monkeys. We're the way that we do things is we try to keep it old school. We do have a couple of cruiserweights, yes, that do a whole lot of spots, and sometimes unnecessary spots at that. But now at GCW, there was quite a few spot monkeys there. I can say that from that little bit of time that I was there. But I do see where JR is coming from. Yes, in WWE and AEW, you get that a lot. The spot monkeys, they will fly over or between the ropes and land on everybody. And it's starting to become like an every match kind of thing almost. That's what it seems like to me. Every match, everybody's flying and jumping onto each other, jumping into a group of people.
All right, Lance, I'm going to pose that question to you. You know, JR made a point about, the talent not understanding the wrestling business. And they're overdoing it with these moves. Again, what's your take on that?
They do, and I believe you said something about certain people that in these companies getting offended that he said this.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna quote the great Jim Cornette on this one. You shouldn't have such sensitive damn feelings. You're in the wrestling business.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick, we've had many discussions on how I feel the same way like Jim Ross when it comes to, all these spot monkeys and the overdoing of moves, you know, over substance. And again, I grew up in the 80s and I got to see a leg drop. That was the finisher. Or a sleeper hold or DDT as a finisher. Hell, Macho Man elbow, and that was it. What do you think about JR's comments?
Well, when you talk about the basic moves, like you said, a Hulk Hogan doing the leg drop or the Macho Man elbow, or, Jake the Snake's DDT or Paul Orndorff the pile driver. At that time, I can even say that's a specialty move. That's a move that they crafted for the master, whereas others, you see a DDT, but, they don't really try to get the full pin. The wrestlers sometimes, I can admit, they kind of do kick out and they don't kick out, but I think when it comes to the big top show or that big, most important match, like a title match, you hit those finishers, you're going to get the win. Like Kenny Omega, he always does a knee trigger. A very simple running knee to the face. And he gets the win. And as far as the spot monkey thing, I do see a lot of spots where you see 10 people, outside the ring and, somebody jumps on and they all get knocked over. And, I can see why that could be overused a little bit. But as far as there's no technical wrestling, I have to disagree to a point, especially over at AEW. I watched FTR, a great technical wrestlers. SCU, again, some good technical wrestlers. Eventually, when it starts, picking up the pace, they do a few springboard moves, but they're not doing over the top like lucha libre moves. And then you have Hybrid too, which at first I didn't really care for, but I saw their match last Wednesday, and I was really impressed because again they were doing the leg locks, they were doing a lot of submission moves, basic, moves that you don't even see. The WWE is definitely a spot monkey promotion. I think AEW is trying to get away from that, but yes, they do have the spot monkeys spots.
All right. Now,
Can I also add one more thing?
Okay, Zoe.
Okay. As far as people getting offended by it, here's the thing in this business. You have to have thick skin, but you also have to have understanding. If you're being criticized by somebody like JR, who has been in the business this damn long and still going, he's seen some shit. Take and learn from it. Don't get offended. It's criticism. I get criticism whenever I don't agree with it. Guess what? I still say, yes, sir, I'll work on it. You gotta have thick skin. If you're gonna be offended that easily, see ya.
Absolutely. Over in the WWE, we kind of have a similar situation. Vince McMahon upset with the current talent roster. I can understand why. According to reports, Vince McMahon is not happy with the bigger talent in-ring performance. Such guys like Keith Lee, Mace, Otis, and several others. Shane Helms took to Twitter in response to the post saying, players that make it to the NBA, NFL, NHL, etc. don't stop practicing drilling just because they made it to the top. Being signed to to a major promotion doesn't mean stop trying to perfect your craft. That's when you work harder to perfect your craft. Don't take this tweet as a knock on everyone. Take it as encouragement. Put it to work. You'll be glad you did, I promise. What's up with that? I can understand that because that was one of the things my mentor told me, and that's some of the guys who I've worked with. Just because you make it to a certain level, just because you get there, don't slouch down because there's going to be someone else taking over. Vince is very finicky, and if you kind of don't perform well or don't do well, he's going to slap you down and throw you off. Now, a lot of this stuff that he does is basically his own doing. With Keith Lee, sensational big guy. I think he's just being wasted because there's not enough big people for him to fight against. You can only go against Braun Strowman and a couple other guys really fast. I think, well, I like Keith Lee. Yes, he needs more training. Yes, he needs more fundamentals. He needs to really make his body a little bit more solid. Mace, Mace is that member of Retribution that was a commentator, I believe. He looks awesome. He kind of reminds me of the Predator. He's another guy I can understand why he needs to go back to the Performance Center. And then you had Jake the Milkman Milligan, which is Otis. I'm going to just throw this over to Zoe again, the current worker here. Those names, Otis especially, he was good as a tag team. He has the little charisma. He's just doesn't have that, I don't know, to me, he doesn't have that it factor. He's kind of in that Eugene Doink kind of category.
Man, I love my boy Otis. I really do. I mean, boom, shagaloo. He's my favorite. But like you said, he's more of a great tag team talent instead of just a singles competitor. And to a certain extent, I want to feel like some of these guys that Vince is sending back down to the Performance Center to start working a little bit harder on themselves. It's because he does feel like maybe, possibly, they could have that it factor. They've came up to, the main stage and they've got comfortable. And that not only has to deal with their in-ring performance, deals with the mic performance, deals with the gimmick performance, it also deals with the performance in the back as well. In this business, you do have to stay humble no matter what stage that you're in as a wrestler. But yeah, there's some of them. It couldn't hurt to send them back to the Performance Center, definitely. Otis is one of them. I feel like, if he worked on himself a little bit more, maybe along down the line, he could be a great singles competitor. Let him work on himself.
You know what, Lance? And she made some very valid points there. A lot of these guys, they get into that spotlight and they're content. They're content of staying where they're at. They have no strive to be better, and as long as they collect a WWE paycheck and they're seen on TV once in a while, they're good because they're known as a WWE talent. And then they wonder why Vince sometimes has to bring in a Goldberg or a Hogan or somebody else to fill in those spots because these guys are not moving forward.
Even if you listen to some of our live reactions, we'll even say, hey, he needs to work on that, or he could definitely improve on, say, the mics, because we've even said that during some of our broadcasts. So, to be honest, some of these guys, Vince ain't wrong, and I don't say that very often.
Definitely. And Rick, final word on Vinnie Mac.
We've always talked recently about how Vin Max has been doing, running stories at the last minute because he has to make sure everything's perfect. You do see some of the larger guys, do some of these botches, but then again, you see some of the smaller guys do botches. and honing the craft and working in a performance center and working in the ring, 300 days a week, you have to wonder when these guys actually get a break. Now, I can't speak for what they do behind the, like behind the curtain. I'm sure we'd all like to see what they actually do. Do they, come in, kind of stretch out a little bit, work out, so that way when they're in the ring, they're not as stiff? Or if they're, run right out and say, well, I'm going to train early in the day and I'm going to do some of these spots at the performance center. It seems to be the smaller talent, those who are small on the roster, who tend to put that little bit of extra effort in. As opposed to big guys like Keith Lee, I'm sorry, but I'm impressed with Keith Lee. He moves fast. He's agile, especially for a guy his size. He reminds me almost of, I won't say a big Van Vader, but just the, guys like, God, I can't think. Don't mind me. My brain's not working right now.
I would say Junkyard Dog.
Bigger,
I don't know. Maybe.
Thank you, Junkyard Dog, and the other wrestlers who can be a little bit more move back and forth. You have some of the female wrestlers, unfortunately, the larger ones. You have like Nia Jax.
Well, that's not a
she does some moves, but she just uses powerhouse moves, and that's all she can do because when she tries to do other things, she's injuring people left and right. And that just shows me wrestlers like that need some serious training. They're the ones who have to hone their craft morning, noon, and night.
Yeah, one of the things that, again, when I was in the business, I was always told, keep working on your craft. Keep practicing promos. Go in there, do what you got to do. Never slow down because there's always going to be somebody else waiting in the wings. Unfortunately, the other talent today is not. They're all comfortable. I think they just don't care because they're already in that spot. Hopefully that changes, and again, I hope that Keith Lee especially can move back into that spot, and he can improve himself. Braun Strowman has, if you've seen his recent pictures, he's out with a kayfabe injury, but he's actually, he looks phenomenal. No knock on AJ Styles, but this guy is ripped. He's actually chiseled now. He's not that little baby fat. He's chiseled. And when you have a big monster like him that is completely built, Randy Orton and everybody else better be careful because this guy has to go. And hopefully the other talent take it serious and they get into it and they deal with, they get back into, the business and they learn how to deal in the business. All right, let's go to our final topic. CM Punk. Would CM Punk ever wrestle again, and why would we want to see him again? And that's my question. Why would we want? CM Punk was the latest guest on Renee Young's Oral Sessions. You know what? I first of all, let's stop. Oral Sessions.
Giggity.
Yeah.
I would like to see some
let's bring in the next prick in here and sit him down. Here, cock yourself in a chair right here.
I'm sure John Moxley loves Oral Sessions.
Yeah.
Well, she was his first. He was her first session.
Oh God. That one thing that has to be a knock. That has to be a rib, because, yes, it could have been talkative sessions. It could have been anything. Oral Sessions, really? Who came up with that shit?
You know what, though? It got people's attention.
Yeah.
You hear that, like, huh? And it's unforgettable. So I think it wasn't stupid. I think it was actually brilliant, honestly, all joking aside.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna hold it right here for a minute from CM Punk. Guys, check on YouTube real quick. It's called Chris Adams, A Gentleman's Choice. It was a documentary from the same folks who did the independent tragedy of the Von Erichs. Not the WWE version, but they did a version. And I seen it. It's free on YouTube. You can check it out. It's called The Gentleman's Choice. Gentleman Chris Adams, who was a wrestler for World Class Championship Wrestling. It basically talks his story. The guy had issues, like many other wrestlers from World Class who had drugs in his system and all that. Look at it. It's a funny. It's not a funny thing. It's a sad thing, especially with a guy like him. But I think that the main thing is you look at the people they interview, and they interview this one stripper, Rick. I want you to look at it, and I would love to do a talk show on it. We'll do a podcast on this. The one stripper steals the show because if you look at all the comments, she is in there, and I'm not going to explain why. And it's not because of body, but it's the same way. When we look at Oral Sessions, you think of one thing. When you think of that movie, it sure is about Chris Adams, but it's the stripper. You can't get the stripper out of your head. So let me continue. Young ex-Punk, if you were ever consider returning to wrestling. In short, Punk stated that it would have to be for the right scenario and a very high paycheck, that's the right scenario. Without wanting to insult anybody on either side of the fence, any WWE talent or AEW talent, it will take, and above all, an interesting scenario, a story that will be fun to tell. Also, just the stupidest amount of money. But they could save themselves a whole lot of money if they just presented a fun storyline. Now, that's what it is. I don't know. He says, I'm a pretty picky guy, especially at this point. You know, Rick, at this point, you know, his big selling factor is the paycheck, of course. Anything is always money. He throws in a little thing on the side. Yeah, you know, it'd be fun. Yeah, you know, if they had a nice talk. No, it's the money. Personally, I've seen CM Punk in his heyday. You know, I enjoyed him as the champion at the time. You know, his battles with many stars when Paul Heyman was managing him. I really don't want to see him in there. It's like he's not in the best shape possible. I don't know. I wouldn't want to see him in there.
You know, I have to agree. And you know what? That's exactly what it would be, a draw. And you know what? Punk, he says he's a very picky guy, so that tells me he would micromanage every little aspect of the show. And of course, you know that he would have to be the guy that wins. He would not be the guy that loses, or, he might, let's say, lose a battle, but will win the war, so to speak, if he did like a rubber band match. And he's just very arrogant, he seems to forget where he came from. I mean, if it wasn't for WWE, this guy would still wrestle. He made his money. He tried to go to UFC. He made some nice paychecks, although he got his ass kicked. And, he's an afterthought. Wrestling fans want to see him, and he knows they want to see him. But, to be honest with you, I could care less either way. I wouldn't be that guy who would mark out, like, oh, my God, it's CM Punk, Because, let's be frank. He's lost the love for the business. You can blame Vince McMahon, you can blame the WWE, but it tells me when he started getting popular, started getting those paychecks, he became very, very arrogant, and, and it got to the point where he's just like, you know what, no, I'm gonna, I can do what I want to do and how I want to do it, and, it bit him in the ass.
Yeah, it's like Gasp, like the Ultimate Warrior. Lance, here is the situation, Punk knows he's wanted. He's kind of like got that big grin, like, like, show me the money. Do you think besides that, is that the only thing that's going to bring this guy back? And do you think AJ Lee might be a factor as well?
If I hope Miss Lee is involved, but hey, if she's not, I want his opponent to go into business for himself, and the match will be over in, about a minute and a half?
Him having flashbacks of UFC, you mean?
No, him actually getting his ass beaten about a minute and a half.
Yeah, you know what? And that it would have to take someone. It'll have to take someone like a Braun Strowman, or I don't know, somebody else big that could do it, that could manhandle him with no problems. Zoe,
I agree on that one, Joe, but I'll let you finish your thought.
okay. Zoe, we're gonna go talk. You've heard what Rick, myself, and Lance has said. While CM Punk in his prime against an AJ Styles would have been awesome, I just don't see his appeal today, except for being that novelty guy that pops up.
The only appeal that he has, but honestly, most fans would want him to come back for, is the expected pipe bomb against the McMahon's Triple H and Stephanie, to tell you the truth. Nobody can care less if he wrestles again. If his wife said I was coming back to wrestle, everybody would probably be popping. They'd be like, oh, yes, CM Punk, I'm going to go back to wrestle. Wow, one short-ass match, hopefully does a pipe bomb. That's what people expect. And it's going to have to take a shit ton of money for him to come back to WWE.
Absolutely. Rick, go ahead. You had the final word.
Again, going back to Punk, and this saying that, he has to, be a big show against big guys like somebody like Braun Strowman. And you know what? I disagree. It's going to have to be a dream match. It's going to have to be against, one of the top stars in either AEW or the WWE. As far as AJ Lee being a factor, highly unlikely. For one reason or another, I think it was right during the same time that CM Punk retired, she retired. But I don't want to jump into that. That's a completely different conversation. I think, again, Punk would have to be the guy that fights the top guy, the best guy. And again, he's going to be the one that gets the win. And the paycheck, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge paycheck, but at the most, he's going to be the guy that says, well, you know what? I want to do the match this way, and I want to do the match this way, and I have to win. And it's going to be one match. This guy lost his religion. He's not a wrestler anymore. He's going to be, not even a Brock Lesnar. I got to say, Brock Lesnar wrestles more than he does. And he, the only time he talks about wrestling is when he's on a podcast. So for somebody who claims he has no love for wrestling, he does plenty of talk about it. And, at the end of the day, I'm sorry. If Punk came back, I could care less either way.
All right. You know what? Let's do this real quick before we go off the air. Dream matches with CM Punk. I would say CM Punk versus AJ Styles. That'll be a dream match. Now, just think about it. Wherever we're going to see CM Punk fight
They
AJ.
have wrestled. They have wrestled a couple of times.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. But not in
Not
the
in the WWE or AEW.
Right. And I think that'll be a big factor. Let's go to you, Zoe. Dream match with CM Punk. With whom?
Oh, I really can't think of any because I don't like CM Punk, and honestly, he's lost so damn much respect. I don't know of anybody who would actually work a dream match against him.
Very good. That's probably more accurate in the wrestling business today than he is. Lance, let's go over to you.
Well, okay. Picture this. CM Punk comes down to the ring with Little Miss skipping in them shorts, AJ, and then down comes Cody Rhodes with Little Miss Brandy. I'm not talking about tag team. I mean, the two women would be at ringside, but hey, that'd be a win-win for everybody.
I thought you was going to say Bray Wyatt is defeating Alexa Bliss.
That'd be a fucking nightmare, no pun intended.
Right.
Well, Rick, what about you? I know he's not your favorite wrestler, but who would you think of a dream match with him?
Honestly, I think more of in his heyday when he was a fresh, or he definitely had his craft honed. I'd have to say Kenny Omega.
Oh, there you go. Well, you know what? Right now, he's just doing big teases, so I don't think we're going to see anything more elaborate come out of him unless somebody actually slides a humongous check. And right now, Vince is not going to do that with the current financial woes he has. AEW is definitely not going to look at it because they're going to look at more to the future with new talent. Yes, they have veteran talent in there in a managerial sense, but and they'd have the big coup with Sting right now. So I think a CM Punk in AEW, while I think they did work talks with him before to kind of bring him in, I don't think it's going to be something that they're going to look at him right now and says, yeah, right. You know, go with your cult of personality. So, who knows what will happen with CM Punk. But all right, everybody, before we head off, Sunday night it is, what, TLC?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So many WWE pay-per-views. It will be TLC. Will be, I don't know if we're going to do our picks probably the Saturday or Friday night. But we will let you fans know what's going on. We will keep you up to date with rumors and news that circulate in the pro wrestling industry. Let's go to you, Zoe. Tell everybody what's going on and where they can find you, and where they can find the keys to John Moxley's closet.
You're never gonna find those keys. Usually, you guys can always find me at KZW, but right now we are still on a hiatus. We're hoping to be back in January, but we don't know. We're hoping. Other than that, normally I do creepypastas and supposedly true scary stories Friday nights at 9 o'clock. Right now, I am on a hiatus from that because I'm waiting for my computer to come back. They're having to order a part, so that should be happening within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I hope.
Alrighty. Well, let's go to the incomparable one, Lance Moss. Lance Man. Tell everybody what's going on and where they can find you.
Well, you can find me and Zoe and whoever else decides to show up on Tuesday nights and most Saturday nights with Lance Moss TV and Friends and Lance Moss TV and Friends Weekend Edition, where we basically shoot the shit for 2 hours, sometimes 2.5. And, well, also, new content will be coming in the new year.
Alrighty. Rick, you are pretty much the warden of this insane asylum. You want to tell everybody where they can find us and what's going on?
Well, HWR's home quarters is in the HWR chat room. That's a group section on Facebook. We cover the latest news, rumors. Of course, we do the, four-corner rants. And I also like to cover AEW Dynamite or just AEW products as a whole. If you ask me what's going on in WWE or like TLC, I'm like, oh, really? They're having a pay-per-view? I've lost my religion with that company as a whole. But I also like to do blogs, or what I like to call a hardcore wrestling rant. So, like I said, if you really want to catch up with the news, rumors, and a lot more, feel free to come on over. Ask to join, and you'll get right in.
All right, and I am Joseph Scoldren Knight. You can find me on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Just do the hashtag Scoldren's Realm. Why do many games from the console to the PC, from classic to current? So definitely check me out again at hashtag Scoldren's Realm. Well, guys, it's been fun tonight. We had a lot of topics to cover. We have this Sunday TLC, and we're going to die a little bit more. We're going to die worse than when Rick had to watch Impact. At least we're spared from that. So with that, I'm going to say thanks, everybody, for listening in. Hope you guys tune in some more. And we'll see you again, possibly Friday or the weekend, or next week. Lance?
Buy this shirt!
Lance, you forgot the other part now.